Good afternoon, everybody. So we have been having some very interesting discussions about who should be taking the buck of extra cost for the quality, how do we improve the quality of food logistics. So this particular session, what we are joining together here is how to bring efficiency in the transportation segment. So the key areas, what we want to look at is there a way by using, even if it means a premier mode of transport, can air cargo get you some efficiencies and benefits? So I have the panel here. Klaus, you have heard him just now. Hans, and then Kendrick. So my questions start with Klaus. With air cargo, the debate is that food being impacted by time and the sensitivity part of it, right? So if the time can be saved through a faster mode, will it actually give the efficiencies for the shipper or the final party? Can it be achieved, or you think air should be limited to only specific commodities?
Yes, I think this was also part of my presentation. We in the airline industry, we do transport more or less only the time and temperature sensitive shipments. So in case we have to make this intermodal section with, let's say, sea freight or also rail, we could run into a deep challenge. So, of course, it could be possible, but I do foresee some huge risks because the shipper industry, like the perishable industry or also the pharmaceutical industry, are requesting to have these items within the other corner of the world within, let's say, 18 or 24 hours. So, of course, in general, yes, it's possible for, let's say, normal food stuff, but if it's affected with a time and temperature sensitive background, it's a huge challenge.
Okay, you mentioned that 50% of your business comes from food, while 50% comes from the pharma side. Now, what kind of food products or the commodities are your customers giving, or what are you handling, which justify that kind of a premium payment, despite still giving somebody that scope to get them, sell them, and get some profit as well?
We do have a lot of different products on our aircrafts. A lot of from them are from the flour industry or for the flour industry, which means the farms in Kenya or in somewhere in Africa have to sell their flours into the Netherlands in Europe. Okay. And they have to be there in the racks 18 hours later. So this is one typical example. Or also fresh meat, cut fruits, everything what you can see in the supermarket racks can become from air freight. Okay.
So flowers is one segment, definitely, very sensitive. You cannot hold it like apples. Somebody was saying 8 months after you are buying here. So then fresh cut fruits, which is again another segment. But how about the general, the mass volumes of food products? Your cereals, your grains. Do you think they'll have some efficiencies by using air cargo mode?
I think it depends in total from the quantity. As we mentioned, the flowers should be in the other side of the world very fast. But if we talk on this quantities like apples, oranges, or potatoes, I think we can use other alternates like sea freight or road feeder services, depending on the distance, of course, or also rail. But as I mentioned, it should be time and temperature sensitive for the customer, then he choose air freight.
Okay. One thing I would want to ask you is, with such a large fleet, you said across 200, if a few players like you join hands on the cargo side, like what you do on the passenger code sharing agreements, is there a possibility of getting air cargo into affordable range rather than keeping that as a premium aura? Is there a possibility to get that into an affordable range for majority of the industry, food industry?
You mean of the prices or?
Yes, of course. No, cost of air cargo. Can we bring it into affordability range?
We try as much as possible, but of course we have a commercial mindset. I think this is not a secret. And also what I did present in my presentation, these are huge investments, like the cool dollies or also the white covers. Not the single white cover, but if you have hundreds or thousands of it, it's a huge investment. And it brings also value-added services to the customer itself, because it's not this general cargo, what we do transport like consolidation shipments. So I sometimes I compare like if you fly in a business class, you get your glass of champagne, you also pay more, or you have more space for your legs instead of flying in the economy class. So I think also the customer or the passenger itself accept to pay more to get this value-added service.
Okay.
Can I add a little bit to this? It's very important to know that we're talking about the GCC here, but to address your earlier question around whether or not it would be realistic to have, let's say, a large fleet so that air freight becomes affordable. I think you got to remember that one, fuel is a limited resource, so I don't think that's going to get any cheaper. Two, I think as your markets begin to mature, a lot of them are going to want a bit more responsibility in terms of how their food gets to their table, right? In North America, for example, there's huge programs around trying to near source their food. So although it may be cheaper from a dollars and cents standpoint to get you, let's say, apples from Africa, it might actually be cheaper to get apples from, let's say, Atlanta, Georgia, if you live in New York. So I think at the end of the day, some of the consumers might not be too happy with the way that food may be delivered to their table. So I'm not sure it's only just simply a matter of cost.
Okay. Kendrick, just continuing with you. You said rail is going to start end of 2013, probably just hardly about a month away. So we are hoping to see a good bang news next month that Etihad Rail has started operations, hopefully. But what you said is, focus is sulfur, gas fields, and all. Now, if at all, containerization happens and then that is transported by rail, food products, as you said, you're hoping. What kind of food products are you hoping that they can actually use this containerized rail and get the benefits of this efficient transportation mode?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned before, I'm feeling a lot of hesitance in the market around whether or not Etihad Rail will actually be delivering the goods, so to speak. As I mentioned earlier, I can't physically bring a train in, but we can take videos, so that's available online, so you can see the assets on the ground. When it comes to intermodal and what food products it can cater to, as Klaus mentioned, time and temperature sensitive, requires hours. That's not going to be railable, right? Rail won't be the solution for everybody. If you need your products in days, then that's something that you can look into. And don't forget, in addition to just intermodal food, then you also have the option of using bulk. Right, so rail is actually very, very efficient when it comes to moving bulk. So grains, liquids, these are additional items that you can consider. Now, they're not all perishable, but when you look at, let's say, the movement of bottled liquids, a bulk solution might actually be better for you, because at the end of the day, you're selling your product that's inside the bottles, not necessarily the bottles themselves.
I think what we are speaking in the end really is about the product itself, and I think there's a fundamental difference. For the air freight, we are speaking berries, we are speaking fresh cut flowers. For the rail, as you said, we're talking grain, for instance. For the containers, talking sea freight now, it will be everything else. And the shippers we have here tonight, they will know. We are talking about apples, as we mentioned earlier, and these kind of products. I think, and this also unites us here on the panel today, that we are speaking really much about the product rather than saving costs by changing something fundamentally, which I believe in the end will be difficult to achieve.
But as a freight forwarder, you have even the visibility to the next level, who is giving you the cargo. So you tell me, with an extended supply chain participation, what is the kind of efficiencies can be achieved in the transportation chain? What can be done to achieve that kind of efficiencies?
Well, we differentiate here between the flow of the cargo and the flow of information.
Okay.
Okay, one thing for the flow of cargo, it's very important for us that we have very knowledgeable people at both ends, especially in the region, planning the whole supply chain. But then also speaking about the flow of information for us with a tracing system, with a reporting system behind. This is something where I believe Kühne also is very advanced compared to competitors. Again, I agree with Klaus here. It will always be, if we don't partner up with the carriers, with the airlines, talking about air freight, and this will be our black spot, and we only can overcome this if we really develop a mutual understanding and agreement to share this kind of information, which in the end, correct me if I'm wrong, is also a legal part, if you guys really want to share it or not.
Okay, 1 second, here, see, what we're saying is information sharing is a problem, no black spot are you saying. Now, in majority of the cases where we have seen the food value chain, at least the originating point at the farming side, entities like yours or Emirates, which have got the technology at its disposal and the possibility of educating the other participants within the value chain, what can be done? What kind of initiatives can you take up to probably bring that efficiencies as well as the visibility to that extended value chain?
Well, I think it's important to understand that in the end we are transporters. We will not change the products during it is in transit. We will take the goods as they are delivered to our warehouse, as we are picking them up at the shipper's facility, and we are delivering this in the same state and the same quality as we have taken it from the shippers. I think this is our responsibility. Our responsibility cannot be to get fresh apples at a temperature of 25 degrees coming right from the fields and deliver them chilled, ready to go to the supermarkets at the final destination.
Okay.
I think, sorry,
yeah,
I think the magic word, I think it was mentioned more than once this afternoon, and especially during the sessions, panel sessions and the presentations. The magic word is communication between all stakeholders. So all the supply chain providers, if it's a rail organization or a freight forwarder or a airline like we are, we have to know the requirements from the shipper itself. And we have compiled this information with the freight forwarder and to agree on, let's say, this kind of standard operation procedures, SOPs, and to make this information accessible to all people in the supply chain. Also the people in the warehouse who handle the shipment, they have to be aware, also in terms of contingency. So I think to share information is a must in the supply chain.
Some questions.
Yes. Okay, so any questions from the floor side we would like to take for the panel?
As they say, good beginning, good end, and a short time in between, but it was quite informative. I wanted to ask about when do you figure, what's the realistic time horizon for us to expect reduction in food prices due to logistical efficiencies due to this rail?
That would imply we actually have an idea of what price we would like to cost this at. The reality is 2017 is our target goal. Now, the people here in this market, right, they won't use rail for delivery from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. It's just the distances are just too short, right? So that would then imply that all GCC countries have to be synchronized in terms of their construction. So the target today for GCC is 2018. So an educated guess from me, 2020, right, is when things will be operational, when you'll actually start getting savings.
Efficiencies or the savings can be achieved when the extra distance what the ships are traveling to get into the Gulf or vice versa, getting the ships at the Jebel Ali and then transporting your cargo within the region
So to
can be
Qatar,
avoided.
for example, from Jebel Ali to Qatar, would that,
Yes,
would that be
yes.
economical?
So when that can be avoided and all that can be shipped on one big train and sent out to a target destination interior of the place, that's when you can actually start seeing the changes or the savings with a combination of the shipping plus rail. So you don't have to all the way get your ships into Jebel Ali. You can probably unload the cargo at Jeddah airport and then get your cargo into the Gulf side. So it can actually turn the reverse way. Then you can gain that time, extra shipping cost is saved. That's how you will realize. So 2020, yes, probably let's hope we all join again and see the savings calculated. Any other questions? One there.
Hi, Mark Appleyard from Morden. I would just like to add another aspect to what you've just mentioned about the savings. With Morden, we're having discussions with Etihad Rail along with SAR, our partners in Saudi Arabia. And I think the real benefits and the real savings will occur when you get the synergies between the flows, not just about the shipping routes. We're going to have, there won't be savings if we have empty rail cars going one way and full rail cars going the other. We've got to get the synergies between the flows. And that will rely on technology and how we can use the same cars or same flatbeds with different types of cargoes. Right.
I know something similar what we see in the shipping industry. There's a big challenge of maintaining the empty containers. Like you have the flow primarily from the one side, say China to Europe and US. So filled containers going that way. But what to do with that emptied containers? That's actually become a critical challenge for the shipping industry. So something like that has to be thought about and devised. Probably you do a roundabout routing for cargo from this side to again the reverse way. So maybe once we have the network in place, we would be able to do some permutations and combinations to see the best way. Yeah, next question, please.
Right. Actually, I have a question for Kendrick. You mentioned borderless movement either at origin or at destination. I hope there is a plan. For example, today we have such a thing, which is the rail movement between Dammam and Riyadh. But if it goes into the same dry port, 7 days actually will become 14 days in clearance. Doesn't matter if you're clearing it at the, on the way or you're clearing it at the destination.
We will have reefer racks there where we can accommodate the perishable goods shipments. And I would envisage that these centres could actually be distribution centres. So reefers could actually come off reefer containers, be stored there, be maintained for onward distribution. So the infrastructure is coming in line with the rail network.
Of course, having a uniform network across the countries is a primary given thing. Whether we call it as a trans-country rail or transcontinental rail, the projects which we are seeing, Gulf Rail is just one of it. We already had discussions in similar forums related to rail. There are plans to get a similar rail network in North Africa and a wild possibility of linking that NA rail or North Africa rail into the Middle East rail and taking it all the way into the Europe. So that could be really a revolutionary day when we see that.
So how you can ensure that you will maintain all the temperature and the humidity all the way to the shipper with the same range? Do you keep the track and do you provide some graphs for the temperature for all the way along for the shipment? Mr. Sky Cargo, please.
I think, Hans.
I think this is something, sea freight really has a good advantage over air freight. We heard earlier in air freight, Dubai is very advanced in this regard. There's another airport in Frankfurt, Germany. But other than that, in air freight it's difficult to maintain the temperature throughout the whole voyage. Well, they only do it, control it during the voyage on board the airplane. In sea freight, actually, it is very much possible to maintain the same temperatures. On one hand, because of the good insulation of the containers itself. Other than that, it's very easy to supply the container with power during the pre-carriage, during the time in the storage at the port, during the voyage, and the same at the final destination. Having said that, I also must say that over here in Dubai, although we're having this extreme climate, we're having extreme temperatures during the summer peak, I must say that gensets, which are the supply, finally for with power for the containers, are hardly used. And I'm in Dubai now for 2 years, and this is something I was really wondering on. That although distances are short, but given this really high temperatures, people were not bothering too much. Sorry. Especially taking into consideration that things can happen here, that containers get stuck with authorities, that there's some problems. Okay, I think gensets is something very important.
Okay, so if you want to sum up the key communications from this session, from Klaus' side, if it is possible, or if we take up the effort of getting all the parties within the supply chain to be educated and to be involved in the planning and execution of entire transportation and the integrated activities, it is possible to achieve really practical efficiencies within this transportation effort. And from Kendrick's side, we can note that within food industry, by probably 2017 and 18, we can start seeing some share of cargo within the region getting into rail containers and witnessing some savings. So thanks for having this good discussion and the contribution from your side.
Thank you to the panel, and please join with me in thanking them, folks. Klaus, Hannes, and Hendrik on the panel today. Thank you.